Welcome to the Fave 5 podcast, which is a weekly feature that I've been doing now. This is the 12th podcast that I've recorded, in which I talk to friends and family members to hear about their life story, talk a little bit about some of the things that they like to do and some interests that we have in common, and tell each other a story at the end. So today, my guest is my brother-in-law, Buzz Hayes, also known as Walker Hayes Jr., but most people know him as Buzz. Buzz, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you, Stan.
So Buzz and I go back to probably around 1970. Uh, Buzz and his sister Barb, who is my wife, lived two doors down from us in Clayton, Missouri. We moved there in 1970 and didn't get to know Buzz till school had started. I think probably when the basketball season started is probably when you and I started to get to know each other.
Yeah,
And you were on the basketball team. I became the statistician of the basketball team. And eventually it seemed like a lot of the basketball team would hang out together. Often we'd be at the basement of our house. So that's probably about the time that we started to get to know each other. And then we were also through the baseball season. You were on the baseball team. And then you were just 1 year behind. When we were seniors, you were a junior. So known you for a long time. I guess that's 55 years.
yeah.
I'm doing the math right. So let's start off by asking you about your background. When were you born and where were you born?
Well, April 12th, 1954, born in St. Louis, at a city hospital there. I don't even recall the name of it anymore. Barb, I'm sure knows, but
Was it St. Mary's Hospital in Richmond
yeah,
Heights?
yeah,
Okay.
I think so. Yeah, yeah, for sure.
Same one where Barb was born and also where Roger was born.
Okay.
And
And
where have you lived since you grew up in St. Louis?
well, started my first 4 to 5 years, I guess, was a duplex on Forsyth um, in Clayton, although it was kind of the border between Clayton and University City, and it's probably U City.
I think so, yeah.
Yeah, and it was interesting. And in growing up as a little kid, my dad had the 8 millimeter um, filming capability, and literally he had pictures of us. I know I was doing it, and probably Barb, taking off from the front of the house, making a dash right for Forsyth, which is, 4 lane busy street. And, you look at that and you just wonder how we survived or just didn't get hit or something. But we lived there for, I guess, my first 4 or 5 years. And then we moved to Clayton. I think largely because my mom told my dad, we have to get to a street that's not as busy, So we did that move and lived really at the on Polo Drive in Clayton for, well, my parents moved out, as they moved into assisted living and things like that. So I was long gone from the house after that, but or before that. But that was kind of Merrimack School. My elementary school was literally a half a block away, and so I mean it was perfect as far. I mean, in those days you didn't have to worry about your kids walking to school anyway, but not in these days and times. But certainly it was convenient because it was so darn close.
So after you left home, where did you end up living?
Well, left home. Uh, and ultimately first moved to Colorado. I had gone to University of Colorado in Boulder, graduated in 76, and then from there went a couple of years to grad school at University of Michigan, got my MBA there, and interestingly, caught on with, well, this was in between my summers of MBA, where I came back to live with my mom and dad for the summer and got a job with McDonnell Douglas as, an aspiring intern or whatever. And I worked in their sales office for their division at the time called McDonnell Douglas Automation Company. And of all things, this is how much dated I am. I guess we all are, but selling computer time sharing. uh, Having people or different businesses log on with a dial-up modem and getting all those weird sounds and just being able to, some online computing, um, some batch computing where they would have, large inventory or engineering types of software available, but it all had to go over phone lines into a series of mainframe computers that they literally had, I think, three floors, each football size floors at McDonnell Douglas Automation, and about 10 million tons of um, air conditioning equipment outside just to keep the stuff from overheating. But it was right out at by St. Louis Airport, Lambert Field. And so I caught on with them for a summer job, did, you know, liked who I was working with and all that, but they had offices throughout the country. And I made the decision to apply for a full-time position with them out in Denver. And so I caught on with them that way. Got a good reference, but they weren't happy with me in the St. Louis office because they liked, but I wanted to live in Colorado. So that's kind of how that all happened.
And you lived in Colorado ever since.
Pretty much, pretty much. I had a one job that kind of took me back to St. Louis for maybe not even 6 months. And it was, I had left McDonnell Douglas previous to that, but they, it was a software company with Telecom, and they called it Pactel. I think it was Spectrum Services, but they were just selling some specific applications on their computer system for basically telecommunications types of applications. And it just, the company really just never took off. And so I was doing a lot of commuting essentially between Colorado and St. Louis. Then I found another job and went back to Colorado. So other
So
than that, I was living in Colorado.
what led you to Colorado initially? How did you decide that you wanted to live there?
Well, I think it was primarily a vacation that we took, um, our family vacation, and my father, of course, drove us out, and we drove all around Colorado, and it was a great time. And I was just kind of intrigued with the geography and the just the overall atmosphere of Colorado. So, and then in high school, I went with a few friends out to Colorado uh, just as a kind of a camping trip. Some guys that you uh, used to know as well. And we camped for a while, about a week, and I just decided, hey, this is good. I wouldn't mind being here full time. And so when it came to the point of college, I I didn't go to Colorado initially. It was Vanderbilt University, and I was having doing fine academically, but I had tried out for baseball there and made the fall team, but the coach didn't want any part of me for the full time for the spring, the real season, in the spring. And as a result, I just moved on from baseball and then moved on from Vanderbilt, came out to Colorado, transferred to CU Boulder. And interestingly, I tried out for baseball there and made the team. But the coach at the time called me over and said, here's the deal. Um, we want you to play, and we think the best thing for you would be to redshirt for a year so you'll have 2 years of eligibility. And I was thinking, well, I didn't even really play full time at Vanderbilt, so it wasn't a like I was transferring. I mean, at that point in college athletics, you couldn't do, a transfer like that. They made you sit out a year anyway, and I just felt like, it's time to get on with life. And I just decided, thanks, but I'm just gonna graduate when I'm supposed to because my parents were paying a lot of money for that kind of stuff, and I was trying to minimize it. I don't think I would have had a Colorado really, their baseball program wasn't on the top of the charts anyway. I don't know of really any of them that got scholarships. There might have been two or three, but it wasn't a big deal. So a lot of reasons I just decided finish your academics and do that on time.
So was Colorado in the Big Eight at that time? Would that have been the right conference?
Yeah, yeah,
Okay.
uh-huh. Yeah.
But it wasn't one of the top baseball teams in the Big Eight, I guess.
No, no. It they would play, but it just wasn't. No, not at all. Because all the it seemed like always the emphasis at Colorado was on football of the two, and eventually it wasn't too many years after I left CU that they dropped baseball altogether.
Uh-huh. Interesting. So when
Yeah.
you were growing up, in addition to you and Barb, who else was in your family?
Well, actually, two different generations. My grandmother and my aunt Betty lived in our house as I was growing up. Aunt Betty was um, confined to a bed all the time because of some physical conditions she had, and my grandma would take care of her. And then my brother Bill was in the house, about 3.5, 4 years younger than I, and that made up the family. I mean, it's wasn't well, it was more prevalent then that you had different generations living in the same house, but I came to find that as I moved on in life, that very few of my friends and or school mates ever had that situation where uh, like a grandparent was living in the house at the same time. But it was, and that was an eye opener. We got that question in an economics class in Colorado. I remember that the prof was asking, how many of you have a grandparent living in your house? And we had about 40 kids in the class, and my hand went right up. I looked around. I wasn't volunteering to ask a question or anything like that. I was the guy. So he asked me a few questions about that, but it was already, I guess, in the American uh, culture kind of going that way. It more or less and less grandparents were living, in their house with their kids or whatever.
What was that like then, having your aunt and your grandmother in the house?
Well, it was interesting. Um, you know, uh, my grandma was getting older, of course, and my aunt was her condition, which I think was a cancer or somewhat of a cancer issue ultimately. She got pretty sick, and I remember it was 1963 in September that she passed away. I just remember that because I was in third grade, I think, and I came home from, I didn't even know she was sick. I mean, I was a third grader. I didn't know anything was going on. And I came home and my grandma said, well, your Aunt Betty died. And she was right there. And they were waiting for the mortuary and all that to take care of the body. But that just hit me like a ton of bricks because that was my first awakening to really life and death, I guess,
Yeah.
and which was actually third grade. Actually, I think I was in fourth grade then. Whatever, because I remember only a couple months later, um, Barb, my sister, your wife, it was third week of November, and she was coming around class to class passing out this note to the teacher to read to the class that President Kennedy had been shot. And that blew me away because all of a sudden, within a very short time span, uh, people that I knew or knew of fairly well were gone. And it affected me for a while, just that whole thing. But living with to answer your question, with my grandmother primarily, and it worked out pretty well. I think that she had my grandmother had her ways of saying things and insinuating things, which occasionally would get her crosswise with not just my mother, but my father as well. And my mother wasn't argumentative at all. She just kind of take one for the team and keep going. But there were some occasional spats between my father and my grandmother. And we sometimes they got a little bit too frequent. And myself, I don't know, I might have been fifth grade by then, sixth grade, I don't know, probably third or fourth, but they were arguing at the table. And I finally had it, and I told them both to shut up. And boy, did I hear it after that. My dad, I think, was dumbfounded because he never expected me to
Yeah,
let go like that. But I let it out, and what was interesting then was just kind of everybody was looking at each other, and nobody said anything. I don't know how I survived alive after doing that, but uh, it was kind of I don't know. We heard it, and as a kid, you don't really understand what they're arguing about anyway. There's
right.
something going on, but I didn't know what it was. But the uh, the decibel level went down very quickly after that.
What did your parents do?
Oh, my father basically worked for the railroad all his life and ended up as an accountant for Terminal Railroad Association, which was based in St. Louis. And he had an engineering background. I mean, he was in the doing civil engineering in World War II on Iwo Jima, trying to figure out where to build or rebuild these runways. And as a result, he kind of wore two hats at times, not just accounting, but he would help them with some engineering projects. And I think it was more than one occasion he helped when the Mississippi River flooded and essentially flooded the tunnels to the Gateway Arch. Um, they called on him uh, to get over there and figure out how to get the water out of it was the railroad that came right by there. And he was able to do that. So he wore different hats. Um, the reason he ended up with them was that he was, I think, with the Frisco Railroad, and they had been moving him all around, which was common because his father worked for the railroad and they were always moving, getting up and moving. And my dad didn't want that to continue for us. And that's why when he was in St. Louis working for the Frisco and they said, we want you to move, they just hung tight and he got the job locally. My mom worked for Anheuser-Busch, I think it was 39 years, uh, and got on with them at the lab, uh, literally testing beer, not necessarily drinking beer day after day. It was, just the different tests they had to do on the beer, making sure the alcohol content and the uh, acidity and all the other tests they did on the beer were correct. So she did that for a long time.
So, what did you like to do when you were in elementary school and junior high and high school?
Well, elementary, it was, the proximity of the elementary school. We would come home, drop off our stuff, and go right back to the playground. And we do things like kickball and just playing catch, climbing on the jungle gyms and things like that. And it was either that or we would be in the neighborhood, just uh, generally some kind of game with other kids in the neighborhood. We would play war, I know, where we, da 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 da, da, and you fall down dead, and we'd be going around the neighborhood like that. But nothing serious, of course. But it was just something we did. And junior high, I started getting more and more into, some team sports. And as certainly an eighth grader, maybe perhaps a little as a seventh grader, got into, they had a middle school football team. I played on that and basketball as well. Just kind of I mean, getting into both of those sports without any kind of formal training, nothing like it is today for the kids who, they pay gobs of money so they can get good at a sport really early in life. Uh, I don't even know if that was available then, but those are the things I did. Our middle school team played one game a year, and that was against, I believe it was Country Day, and we lost that game, I think 6-0. I don't know why I remember that. I made a few tackles, but they set us up the whole game. It was always a run. They never passed the ball. Run, 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 and I'm playing safety. And lo and behold, around 5 minutes left in the fourth quarter, here comes the run, but they faked it. And I'm coming up to make the tackle, and there goes the ball over my head. Touchdown, Country Day. So, um, so it's funny how you remember some of those things, but
Yeah.
uh, that is, I tried out again in my freshman year football and at high school, and that part of my career really didn't go anywhere. I wasn't I wasn't of a football mindset, at least at the time, and I was playing and practicing more and more basketball. So I started doing that, um, and got on as a or started on the. I didn't start my freshman year in high school, but I did as a sophomore, and had improved so much that at the end of our JV year as a sophomore, two or three of us got called up to the varsity to warm the bench. But it was really cool to be there.
Yeah.
you know it's all we all started aspiring to that, and I think at Clayton more than any sport, the basketball team was where you wanted to be as far as it was just uh, I had gone to games as I think in junior high. I watched something and I go, boy, this is cool. I want to do this. So it was pretty much self-taught. Once again, not a formal program that I was ever in for teaching me the skills, but it's just more and more just taking the basketball over to, excuse me, Clayton High, where they had an outdoor gym, an outdoor basketball court. And so we just learned that way.
How about baseball? When did you start playing baseball?
Well, that was early on. My elementary school started as far as the Optimist League, which was started in the latter part of the spring, and I think it started as early as second grade, and it was just underhand semi softball is what it was. And then it escalated up to more of a fast pitch, overhand, baseball. And since when I went as a kid down to the playground all the time, we were always playing corkball, which is a broomstick and a tennis ball, the way we played it. And so we got a lot of hitting, a lot of throwing in. And so I showed up at Optimist League being one of the best players, just because I was the guy that had practiced more and was just more familiar with it, and just kept on with it and developed into. They didn't have baseball really junior high. I think they had a softball something after school in the spring, but that all changed when I went to uh, Clayton High and got on with the team. And uh, it was, something I looked at and said, boy, I'm pretty good at this compared to these other guys or other guys my age.
Yeah.
So it took off from there a little bit.
And you played also like American Legion ball, and were there other leagues you played in?
Primarily American Legion once I hit high school age. When I was a freshman, I would ride the bicycle over to Maplewood, which wasn't trivial because there was no such thing as bike lanes then. And I would ride over there every day trying out for the team. And I was the last guy picked for the team as a freshman, but they ran out of uniforms one guy before me. But went to all the games, sat on the bench, and my dad was totally supportive, but he couldn't get me to the games because he was working downtown and stuff. So each year, sophomore, junior, senior, I continued to play American Legion. And each year I had some other friend, at least one, who decided, yeah, I'm going to try out and I'll come over and pick you up and take you. Didn't have to do the bicycle the
Good.
rest of the time.
So when you were young, what did you want to be when you grew up?
Well, I think uh, for some reason it just hit me to be a businessman. Okay, going to a tall building and doing some important work. Just totally honing in on what that would be. I didn't really have a clue at the time. And honestly, I don't think it was sales, although I ended up on that side of the spectrum as far as employment for many, many years. But, if I had it to do over again, I probably would have majored in math all the way through uh, to advanced calculus and all that kind of stuff. I just kind of stopped short of those types of classes when I went to college, but I probably would have stayed with that discipline because I was good at it. But I was, for some reason, my mind was telling me, get into business. And so I ended up going to business school and,
So
got a
you
degree.
indicated that you would start out at Vanderbilt before you transferred to Colorado. How did you decide on Vanderbilt, and what did you study there?
Well, one of the reasons was smaller school compared to, I got it in my head that everybody was going to Mizzou. And it would just be like Clayton High senior year plus, which is not, but that's how naive I was. But I uh, I went to Vanderbilt because of the smaller class, well, smaller school size, and I thought I had a chance to play baseball there, to continue on and got on with the fall team, and I got cut. After that season, the baseball coach was also essentially an assistant football coach, and he pulled over the entire football, team that he wanted to play on the baseball team, and he had a good team. I believe both years I was there, they won the SEC. So it wasn't like it was a bunch of ragtag
Right.
football players trying to play baseball. And but that was one of the, I was thinking smaller school, not too far from home, and could probably or hopefully play some baseball. But the baseball part didn't work out.
And what was your major there?
Well, I was getting more and more into economics, but pretty much just the broad-based course for sciences and arts. Um, I was taking all the prereqs, and it really wasn't until I got to Colorado, transferred, that I just honed in on math and economics, double major.
And I think you liked it a lot better at Colorado than you did at Vanderbilt. Is that right?
Yeah, because things I my my friend circle of friends at Vanderbilt were primarily three or four guys that were from the East Coast, and that taught me a lot too. But they um, they all pretty much fell into the same thought process about Vanderbilt that I did, which was there's not enough, unless you're in a sorority or fraternity, that was the social life. And none of them, nor I, gravitated towards that because that just, for me, I didn't have any money and I would have asked my dad for it. And um, I couldn't exactly justify. I'm sure he would have said, okay, you pay for it. But once again, I didn't have any money and had some friends, other friends at Vanderbilt who did. They liked it and all that, but the dorm was all messed up, in my opinion, because you didn't live, or the frats, you didn't live in the house. You had to live in the dorms like everybody else. So to me, what was the purpose? That was a main purpose if you wanted to join a frat or a sorority, that type of thing. So my friends all applied and transferred elsewhere after their sophomore year. And as they were filling out applications, I was too. And Colorado was one that I think it might, I don't even think I applied to Mizzou because that's when the Colorado thing started hitting my brain. And I just figured, let's go out there.
And you liked it there.
Yes. Yeah,
What
it
was
was,
your first full-time job then after you graduated from business school?
well, it was McDonnell Douglas Automation
Okay.
in out here in Denver.
Okay.
First full-time job. Yeah.
And then you moved on to some other software companies. Is that right? You were in sales primarily in the software business?
Yeah, initially it was still the time sharing, online, selling time on computers
Yeah,
because it was nothing like it is today, where in the palm of your hand, you probably hold one of those uh, football-sized warehouses with all these mainframe computers, and you got as much power as all of those then in your palm of your hand.
right.
I mean, that's where technology has gone. And I went to another um, company that after McDonnell Douglas, I was there about 6 years. And, you start hearing things in the industry and, oh, that sounds good. Better pay, better base pay and better commission structure and pretty much selling the same types of products. But I decided that this was a lateral type of move, but making more money, and learned fairly quickly that just doing that, it doesn't ensure success. Uh, it doesn't make you rich by any means. And so I made the move, I think, for the right reasons, but just to the wrong company at the time. So, and I actually moved on to another software or time sharing type of company right after that, and it was great. Uh, it was a smaller company than McDonnell Douglas, and they made money. And so we kind of milked the rest of uh, the online type of environment, selling time on computers as much as we could at that company. And it was primarily, though, in the engineering side, civil, structural, mechanical engineering. So I was making a lot of sales calls on literally a lot of utility companies that had nuclear power plants. I'd go out to those sites and I wasn't meeting in the reactor core, but I was on site. It was just pretty amazing, just to see those facilities, and did really well with them because I got to know my customers a little bit better and had a good support staff for those engineering products. So it worked out well.
But eventually you switched over to software, is that right, from time sharing?
Yeah, yeah, because I knew a few people who were starting to sell mini computers and things like good old deck. And I was thinking ultimately that's where I want to go. But it didn't quite work out in my mindset to make that move. I had already come to know, especially with some of these software products that we were offering online, or online computing, that why don't we just license that software? We've got it sitting at corporate. And I worked with this company I really liked, worked for them, and I just told them you ought to figure out some way to license it because everybody's starting to buy hardware, computers, and that's the way it's going. And eventually they're going to move whatever they're doing with us in-house.
Hmm.
If we have the software for it, we can keep on enhancing it, and uh, we could just change the business model over time. But it fell on deaf ears.
So eventually, after quite a while in selling in the tech industry, you moved on to other things. What led you, and where did you end up going in terms of your career?
Well, as far as the career, I was still in high tech, um, but I was getting more and more disappointed. I would get on with some friends that I knew in the business, and they were all gung ho about certain software companies and technology, but I wanted to be a bigger fish in a smaller pond. So, and that part was fine, but the actual companies, the technology was such that whatever was giving them a competitive advantage was going away literally within 6 to 9 months after I joined them. That everybody had that, and then I was left with being with a company that, well, they're not keeping up. They're not on the forefront of technology. Um, Such as a company called Informix, which was a database company essentially. And great people, great culture, had a lot of fun there. But there's another company called Oracle that was, light years ahead as far as not so much as technology, but how to just compete and
Yeah.
win in the software business. And cutthroat company. I mean, just tough as nails. They would hire more and more people every year in sales and cut the territories down for all of them. But the company was growing. Um, it just wasn't me though. So I started gravitating away, and then right around early 2000s, I had just pretty much had it with the software biz and the way I was doing it, which was joining these small companies, and um, they sounded great, but they didn't really pan out that way. And my brother was sick in early 2000s, and I spent a fair amount of time. Every time I could, I was married, of course, and we would make trips back to St. Louis to see him. And when he passed away was kind of the time that I decided, I don't have that much more time with my kids in the house. They were getting up to junior high age. And I just decided to open up my own small business, which didn't require a whole lot of technology. Uh, and it was providing coffee service and break room service for all different kinds of companies and office buildings throughout the metro area in Denver. And I think at the high point, I had about 75 vending machines out there. And I was the guy. I was doing it all on my own. I didn't have to worry about a technician helping me out or explaining things to the customer. And let's face it, most people know how a vending machine works. And the key is keep it in operating condition and keep it full of product, and just, do business that way. And I did really well with that, growing that business. But the technology, honestly, there started taking over, where when I first got into it, it was put a dollar bill in or coins. And that's how you would make your purchase. Well, uh, maybe 10 years in, on that, I was seeing all these credit card readers appearing on these machines. And what it demanded of me was if I could go that way, just buy a machine that had that capability, brand new, or um, just try to retrofit the older technology. And some of that just could not be retrofitted. You'd have to just gut the whole thing and put everything new in there. And I was looking for accounts that essentially would um, allow me to keep the kind of equipment I had. So I was moving some of these older machines to warehouse type of situations where there's good volume and they didn't mind putting coins in or dollar bills in, and they were just happy to have that. So
Mhm.
it kept it going literally another 10, 15 years, and it worked out well. But at that point, I think, the major decision though was this is simple in, how the business runs, but it also allowed me to stay around the house. And I'm glad I did because I was coaching some of my kids' teams and I was, helping them with anything going on at school, not missing really any of the school activities.
Mhm.
And it gave me time with them, which I couldn't, obviously, you can't get that back once they're gone.
Right. And what are you doing now?
Well, I moved, given my age and my, you know, thought process that maybe one of these days you're going to fall and trip and break your leg. And then how are you going to deliver stuff to all these break rooms? So I had just aged into Medicare a few years in, and then Lauren did. And I was kind of intrigued by the fact that I kind of was interested in all the subject matter surrounding it. And I brought her into our agent who signed her up for her Medicare plan. And while we're sitting there, Lauren just kind of was like that to me and says, "You ought to do this." And, she was just, the agent was doing her thing. There's a screen on the wall. So we're looking at, how to compare plans and make a decision. And in about an hour and a half meeting, she had a new client, the agent did, and we were happy. And I said, it doesn't look that hard um, conceptually. And it's something that I was kind of digging the whole process. So I decided to get licensed, get a life and health license in Colorado. And it took a while because some of the classes are not that well structured. I ended up taking the health license by just online. Uh, it was easier for me than, one company said, "Here," and they gave me a book that thick for just the health insurance. I'm not going for the LSAT here. I'm going for just to get but I took an online class, which is much better for me because, you know, different questions and answers throughout. And if you miss it, you get immediate feedback and you kind of, okay, I understand it now. So let's move on to the next topic. But I got licensed, and then it's a whole process of passing it's a company that runs all the testing essentially for Medicare. And you get the life and the health, and then you got to get essentially a Medicare license, which you have to do every year. But and their stuff was that thick, but I got through it and I got better at it, passed it, and that required a 90% or above. So I was kind of, um, I felt that God gave me a path here, and I was digging it, and it was a good thing. I could do it at my pace anyway. Once I got all the required licensing, and so I passed that, and then you have to have tests for every company you want to represent out there. And currently I'm up to 8 companies and which represent in any one zip code, for instance, in Colorado, um, around 60 to 70 plans that I can offer people. I can't offer them all because there's not enough time to get certified with everybody.
Yeah.
So you have to kind of pick and choose.
Mhm.
And um, although I'm licensed with those or certified with all those companies, there's probably four that I really, you know, spend most of my time with. So I got to doing that and been doing it now pretty steady for 3 years.
Okay. When you're not working, what do you like to do? What are your hobbies or interests that you enjoy?
Well, I would say golf, but my eyes are failing me. Um, I still like to get out there and hit it, but it's just discouraging when because of my glaucoma, especially my left eye, I can't see the ball.
Mhm.
And you kind of ultimately coordinate your swing with you see it. Oh, well, when I do it that with my swing, the ball goes way over there. So but I know there's people that are blind that they always go out with the same group. They always watch the ball for them, and uh, that's great. But I really can't play too much anymore unless I have like one of my Greg Wagner, my cousin, who likes to play, and he's just great about, oh, you're over here. So at least I can walk over
Yeah.
to it
Yeah.
and hit it and find it again.
Yeah.
But I do that right now. I'm kind of relegated to walking the dog a lot because I was working out pretty good regimen, 6 to 7 days a week at the YMCA. Just general conditioning, nothing. Would lift some weights, but I'm not, trying to impress anybody either.
Yeah.
But just stay in shape, and I did that pretty much up until COVID hit. And then, of course, they closed down all the gyms. And that's when I really decided, okay, I'm going to walk fast with the dog. So I get some cardiovascular
Mhm.
going. So I walk him twice a day still. Had a little bit of hiccup earlier this year when I had hip surgery, but we're back at it
Oh,
now.
well, that's good.
Yeah, it's not a uh, necessarily glamorous. It's not like I'm doing any other sport right now, but so many of them require the hand-eye coordination. And, honestly, I'd have a hard time playing catch with a softball or a baseball because even if I'm looking at the ball, I lose it because of my blind spot.
Got it.
Yeah, so um, but the walking with the dog and doing some exercises at the house is kind of what I do.
Okay.
And I'll play some occasional golf.
So switching over to our five topics, do you like to read? Are you able to read?
I can read, but once again, the eye
Mhm.
presents problems. And, you know, the only time I was really, well, I would read a fair amount, but before the eye got worse, I would, read things like James Patterson, those kind of novels
Mhm.
that kind of keep your interest throughout. And I would take those on vacation and things like that. Um, honestly, where I'm at now is because I don't have to read volumes and volumes to keep up with a book. I read the Bible a fair amount, and I, pick a story that might be a couple of chapters and just, oh, okay, okay, and try to piece that together. And I work with other guys to do that on a weekly basis.
Mhm.
So that's kind of where the reading has gone. Um, all the rest of the reading is technical stuff for Medicare.
Got it. What about food? What are some of your favorite foods?
Just about anything my wife cooks. She's a great cook, and it amazes me how she comes up with something new virtually every night. And she likes to cook. I think she loves to cook, but I try to stay out of her way because she does such a good job. But as far as just different cuisine, I like sushi. We don't go very. I mean, that's one thing she won't do,
Yeah.
but we'll go maybe once, twice a year. I like Mexican a lot too, but she makes a mean pot of green chili, and that is something that uh, I mean, she'll make the enchiladas or the burritos or whatever and smother it with that, and it's pretty awesome. And the problem is she's so good at it that we just kind of decide, well, why pay all that money to go out when we can get better right here in the
Yeah,
house?
yeah. Well, if you were to go out, or if I were coming to visit and you were going to want to take me somewhere, where would we go?
Well, I probably would take you to Land of Sushi, which I think we have
I think
taken.
so, yeah. I got a
Yeah,
picture of us having sushi together there.
yeah. Well, that place is still good. It's still where it has always been. They expanded a little, which probably happened after your last visit out here, but it's still top notch. So I would say let's go there. And anything else, there's some pretty good food at just some local taverns and bars in Littleton that, they're not top of the line, but just pretty good stuff. So I would just kind of steer us there.
Switching to music, do you have a favorite band or musician or song that comes to mind?
Uh, Probably favorite band of all time might be either the Eagles or the Doobie Brothers,
Hmm.
which also ages me, but they played some pretty good music. Um, just the rock and roll, that really was hitting on the radio waves as I was moving around and playing different baseball games around and my friends are, we're just cranking the music. And we enjoyed that a lot. I don't know if there's any particular musician, although I always have liked Elton John. Um, and Eagles, Doobie Brothers.
Remember, you were a Dan Fogelberg fan, were you not?
Oh, yeah, I'm glad you mentioned that. Yeah, I had pretty much all his stuff because he was really popular during my early college years, and I had just about every album of his. But I don't know, it kind of faded off after a while because other
Yeah.
things came up. I've kind of moved on, if anything, to some occasional just upbeat music.
Mhm.
Hadaway, we played that at Maddie's wedding, but I don't listen to it on a regular basis. But that kind of music, and then just some smoother jazz, different artists that I listen to occasionally.
I remember you making me some cassette tapes of, you'd have a record that I didn't have, so you'd make a
Oh,
copy on
yeah.
cassette, which I still have. Not a lot of cassette players still in action.
No, I probably need to look just in case you need a backup because I don't use mine anymore.
Do you remember what the first record was that you ever bought?
I think it was the Monkees, their first album out,
Yeah,
and I remember it was at that day and age when they had a TV show too, a weekly TV show,
right.
and I thought it was so cool to see the artists actually sing it because everything else was, playing the LPs all the
Yeah.
time, which was great. But I think it was the Monkees was the first one. The only other one I can remember before that was a How to Become a Good Baseball Player, which was by Stan Musial. And I remember that first track was the grip on the bat. This is fundamental. And you had to, so I'd listen to that a lot. Because you asked what I wanted to be when I grew up. Well, if I could have been a Stan Musial, yeah, I would go there.
Now, I know you like sports a lot. What sports do you enjoy watching nowadays?
Well, I like CU Buffaloes football, but given the way these players get paid nowadays, and there's so much, you know, turbulence as far as, well, I'm not starting, so I'm going to transfer. That was unheard of when we were going to school. But I follow them. follow the Broncos and the Nuggets,
Hmm.
like the Avalanche. I mean, local teams.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Now, when you were at Michigan, did you go to the football games?
Oh yeah, oh yeah. Went to all the games at CU, and I think I went to all the games at Michigan for my 2 years there. And I remember it was just party weekend. I think it was my second, my final year at Michigan, and they played Ohio State for the Big Ten championship, and Michigan won that game. And you know, being in that stadium and winning uh, over a huge opponent, you're the opponent you hate the most. That was just a lot of fun.
But you
And
didn't stay a fan of the Wolverines, did you?
well, not, I'm still a fan, but I'm
Okay.
not. CU is my first
Yeah.
undergrad school, and then probably Michigan. Uh,
Okay. That's
just,
good. I
just
happen to
not.
be wearing a Michigan National Championship shirt from
Yeah,
1997. So, in
yeah.
honor of your having attended there.
Uh-huh. Well, thank you.
Well, Barb and I got to see them in the Rose Bowl when they beat Alabama, and that was a lot of fun.
Oh yeah, yeah. I went to the Rose Bowl twice to see the Broncos play, and I went with my friend, and we got shut out both times.
The
Uh,
Broncos or the Buffaloes?
well, it was the Broncos play.
What were they doing playing at the Rose Bowl?
Well, they played, I think the first time I went, it was the New York Giants for the Super Bowl. And
Oh,
that's when the Broncos, I think their Super Bowl history started with four losses over the years.
okay.
And they finally won their first one. But that was, you know, being right there, but I couldn't get in. We just figured we'd scalp a ticket.
Yeah, yeah,
Tickets weren't available, first of all, and whatever we saw was at that time just outrageous.
yeah. Do you have a favorite sports memory?
Well, that's a hard one. I had a few, but honestly, I don't know if, yeah, I think one that comes to mind is after the regular basketball season at Clayton High as a senior. You go into these playoffs essentially to see who will ultimately play for state. And we had the team the year before, your senior year was a better team, better players. I think there were four starters that we lost to your class graduating, but we played consecutively Mercy High School and Normandy, which were much bigger schools. Normandy every year had that Christmas tournament,
Yeah,
basketball tournament, and we had to play them, I think, on consecutive nights, and we beat them both. And I do remember against Normandy, we, I think it was end of third quarter, I believe it was. But clock's ticking down, and I happen to have the ball, and it's close to mid-court, and I had to let it go, and I drained it from mid-court. The buzzer goes off, the fans go wild, and I said, "Well, this is why I wanted to play basketball." It was, and then we actually tied that game, went into overtime, we won. So I guess, and that's when a shot like I made was only 2 points.
only two. Yeah, that would have
Yeah,
been a winner.
yeah, but it wasn't at the end of buzzer. It was, I think, the third quarter,
Oh, okay,
but
got
it
it.
gave us the momentum,
Yeah.
going into the last quarter too.
Did the distance of the shot increase over time as you would retell the
No,
story? No.
nope, nope. It was mid-court.
Okay.
I could, I'd have to go to the videotape to see if it was three-quarter shot.
Well, that's a pretty good memory there. Yeah, because our year we didn't even get out of the first round. We lost to CBC in the initial game.
Yeah, I remember that, and that was, record wise, we were not as good as the your senior class, but as far as that tournament, we went a lot further. And then we had to play. What was the team? Uh, I forgot the guy's name. He was awesome. I think he went to Iowa State to play basketball right after. I mean, right after that whole series, and Herkel Ivy or something like that.
That sounds right. Hercule Ivy.
Yeah, I had to guard him. It was a joke. I mean, the guy would literally he'd pull up just inside the half court line and drain him, as a regular shot. And and that was our last game as in high school. We had gone about as far as we could have
Yeah.
gone.
You remember what it felt like when you were done? Did you feel emotional?
Somewhat, but you don't want to leave with regrets. But the thing that kept on going through my mind was, I think I finally get it. Uh, all the coaching that had taken place up until that point, that I know why he says do that there and do this here. And I think the rest of my teammates pretty much got it too. That was Dawson Pikey as the coach. And we were playing much better that's a testimony to him or a
Yeah,
test to him. But we finally got it and really were playing much better.
that's
But
great.
that by the time that last, if we had kind of another Mercy or Normandy as that final regional game or whatever, we probably would have ended up in it wouldn't be the finals by any means, but I think there was a one more step and then
Yeah.
down to Kiel
Kiel
Auditorium.
Auditorium. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
All right. Final question is who's the best at making you laugh?
Who's the best right now currently?
Or at any time?
Oh, well, I can tell you that um, because my dad, that was, 10 o'clock hour or whatever, 10:30, he'd watch Johnny Carson, and Johnny Carson would oftentimes have on Don Rickles and totally irreverent humor, but the guy was hilarious in my opinion. It's he was an equal opportunity in your face kind of comedian. I really enjoyed him. And later, really enjoyed the series Seinfeld. Uh, Kind of the same thing where, excuse me, I was just thinking where, one episode Jerry's taking a loaf of bread from a 80-year-old lady and running away from her, it's just stupid things like that. But it was just funny, not because, oh yeah, I believe we ought to be able to do that to older people. It was just so off the wall that it was funny.
Yep. It's often a quote. It's a very quotable series. You can have situations that come
Yeah.
up that remind you of something in that series.
Oh yeah.
All right, now it's time, a story. What kind of a story did you choose to share with us?
Hmm. I don't, I had a hard time with this one, but just the story. I don't know. Just stay faithful to your God and follow your heart. That'll take you a long way. Um, I know from experience that, in my job career and all that, I should have taken a step back, maybe even gone to a coach for careers and listened and taken some, you're scoring this on the uh the technical stuff, or the math and the engineering and that. And on sales, you're kind of here. And my whole career I had it the opposite. I want to sell because they make money.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah. But the technical side, I was doing well at that, but I just didn't have the appreciation for it moving forward. And I, so I think personality wise, I kind of had myself reversed somewhat because I still enjoy um, doing an Excel spreadsheet. I don't know all the formulas and all that, but I could put it together and I understand it. And that's not high level nuclear physics, but it is I enjoy doing that. I enjoy doing at my age these New York Times puzzles that come on your phone,
Yeah.
like Wordle and things
Yeah.
like that. I do that virtually every day. It's to keep the mind sharp more than anything. And I think if there's any one story I could pull out of all that, you can reinvent yourself. Took me a while to kind of find what I really like or something I do like. And so if, the circumstances get crazy with an enrollee, say in Medicare, it doesn't bother me so much because I have confidence that I know this stuff and I can help people out. Um, and it gives you a reason to get up in the morning to pursue some aspect of that to grow the business a little bit. I don't have to, but I choose to. And that's a good place to be also, I think.
Is there ever a great teacher or coach or mentor that comes to mind that was helpful to you?
Well, I think it was probably Dawson Pikey. Uh,
Hmm.
People had their opinions of him, but he wasn't, he didn't take it easy on anybody. There was plenty of yelling and screaming, but he could teach the game, at least I felt for me, very well. And had I had one sport where I would have spent a lot more time, learning just getting better at dribbling and things like that. Uh, I think that was just coming into fashion as I was exiting any kind of famedom I would have had pursuing it. But uh, he would really teach the game, and uh, he got us playing as a team. We weren't anywhere near your class and my class. We didn't have any real tall guys. Maybe a few that were a couple inches or so taller than me, but we didn't have the physical attributes of a lot of these other teams, but somehow we ended up beating them.
Yeah.
I I think it was him that really made that happen.
Well, I'm going to wrap up by telling a story about us that goes back to there would have been junior prom for you, senior prom for me and Barb.
Okay.
And that night, Barb likes to tell the story that, she thinks I was kind of on the cheap side because we walked over to the Clayton. I wasn't renting a limousine or anything like. We just walked to the
Right.
prom. But I thought, well, it's only a couple blocks away. Why
Yeah.
don't we
Yeah.
do that? But I recall that you borrowed the family station wagon that night for your date. And do you remember who you took to that prom?
Junior year, it might have been Jody Goldfarb. I don't know.
Okay, that sounds about
But
right.
yeah, I might be wrong though, because I think as long as Scott Adzik was a senior, he was kind of, if he wanted to go out with her, she would definitely go out with him, not me.
But no, he didn't take her to the prom. It was Gingy.
Oh, okay. Okay. Well, it
So
might
you
have,
probably was Jody.
yeah,
And
yeah.
so, but you had the family car, you took it out. And then later on, when we got back from the prom, I think we were over at my house, and either you called or you came up to our house in sort of a panic, and you told us that you had slightly scratched the car, putting it into the garage. And this would
Yeah.
be a major issue for your dad.
Oh, yeah. And it was.
So I said, wait a minute, I think we might be able to help you. I'll get a rescue pad, which was a kind of cleaning pad, and we'll see if we can, wipe that off with that. So I brought the rescue pad over. We did what we could, but I think nonetheless, your dad became aware of this and
Well, there was definitely a dent in the car too. So much those cleaning pads will do. Yeah.
couldn't hide that fact. But anyway, I just recall that being an interesting ending to the evening.
Well, yeah, it was, I think the first time, honestly, it might have been the first time I ever had the car because I had the license finally, be around my junior year.
Yep.
And I was, I was literally more afraid of leaving that car in that nice residential neighborhood in the drive right up against the garage. I was more afraid of it leaving there, uh, even though I'd lock it, than getting it in the garage where it belonged. And the street that you would turn to get into the garage that night had a bunch of cars stacked up, very much limiting the maneuverability. It was about a 7 point turn that I did. I thought, I think I got it squared up. And the car was only had about a couple inches clearance on either side, and I failed.
Hopefully that doesn't dredge up bad memories, but it stood out as one of the interesting
Well,
moments.
actually, the good part about that story too is I didn't sleep really at all the rest of the night. I figured, well, he'd probably think I was drinking or something. And high school, I never had anything to drink, but um, my Aunt Martha was visiting, and the morning started with him. Once he got downstairs, he could see what happened, and the decibel level was way up again. And I said, it's all over for me. But my Aunt Martha just kind of intervened, and she knew what kind of a kid I was, and she stood up for me. And I heard that going on, and um, he eventually, just kind of simmered down. I got up, and I guess the rest is history. I offered him money to fix it, and I don't want your money, that kind of a response. But uh, it was, like I said, it was more fear of just leaving it there in a
Yep.
very safe, parked neighborhood than somehow shoehorning it into that garage. Because I figured, he'll be okay with that, but I'll catch it if I leave it out,
Right. That's it. Well, Buzz, it's been a pleasure having you as my guest today. And
Well, I hope I add to all your likes. I don't know. I can't speak for me drawing in a huge audience for your podcast, but it's been fun.
well, good. We'll share this when it gets posted later, and hopefully your friends and family will enjoy listening to what you had to say today.
Well, I hope so, and enjoyed the time with you.
Thanks.